Hi there, and welcome on the journey to transform culture. I'm Steve, and I'll be your guide. Well, folks, today let's jump into an interesting little topic, otherwise known as crabs in a bucket. If you aren't familiar with the term crabs in a bucket, let me describe it for you. If crabs are in a bucket and a crab tries to crawl up to escape the bucket, the other crabs will pull that crab back down into the bucket, not allowing that crab to escape, ensuring that all the crabs die, right? That is the short and sweet of crabs in a bucket. So, have you ever heard the term crabs in a bucket? Now you know what it refers to. Those crabs aren't going to let that one little crab climb up because, who knows? Maybe there's a little rope at the top, save all the crabs. Who knows? Whatever, right? But the whole notion of crabs in a bucket essentially is that those who are trying to advance the ball or trying to improve, whether that be for themselves or for the rest of the crabs, there is this notion that the rest of the group has to pull that crab down. And where do you see this? Have you ever seen the show Survivor Island? What do? People who typically can get the most food, who can lead the group, they're ejected like in the first couple episodes or less, right? And why is that? It's because of the crabs in the bucket. Oh my gosh, we can't have somebody, whether that be escaping the island, whether whatever, or whether that be outshining even by a little bit, not understanding that potentially that shining is helping all the crabs, right? So now let's take that crabs in a bucket scenario. Let's overlay this into our organizations. I mean, really, frankly, you can overlay this into all culture, whether it be your friend group, your families, and I don't mean necessarily your family, right? But if you haven't noticed it in your own, you've seen it in other families or friends or in culture somewhere. And what does it look like? It looks like when somebody comes into your organization that's trying to, do well for the organization. There's the little nuance of negativity that comes from some team members, right? So it may not be that all the crabs, all of the team is against somebody trying to improve an organization or improve an element of it, or I'll give you an example. If my sole, motivator is to complain about work, right? And then somebody comes in and wants to make work a nicer place to be, right? So you got a new employee comes in, oh, hey, let me paint the office or the break room or whatever, just some light morale improvement or something. Well, then what happens? And I know just about everybody's seen this somewhere in their lives. You have some people nay-naying the people who are trying to, brighten the place up or just trying to bring a little bit of, a little juice the place up a little bit. Now, that isn't even talking about functional improvements. That also applies to functionally too, right? About accomplishing the work. Well, I'm used to doing this much work in this many hours. I don't think I want to improve because that means I'd have to get more done. Well, obviously, what the logic should tell a person is well, if you make you work smarter, right? Then you can accomplish more in the same time and it's probably going to be easier. Okay. That's the whole idea of improving. The whole idea of improving isn't saying I need you to run twice as fast. It means let's spend some time and effort and energy to develop ways that we don't have to run twice as fast, but that we can maintain our quality and potentially improve upon our productivity. Right. But the crabs in the bucket mentality is, well, let's glom onto these individuals. Now I've seen it with leaders, where leaders essentially don't last in a particular organization. And why is that? Because the group kind of poo-poos the leader so badly to say the upper echelon could be the larger group, or if they're owned by a division or whatever it is, where they complain enough red herrings that people start to think, oh, well, the plant manager must be awful, because we have all these complaints or whatever. Well, if you do a little digging, you end up finding that it's crabs in a bucket, right? They don't want to improve and they want to keep things status quo. So the easiest thing to do is to throw that site leader, for example, under the bus. Or it could be a quality person. It could be somebody in the top, 3 or 4 or 5 people in that organization. Even worse, if the plant manager or site leader is throwing people under the bus because they don't want to show any kind of remarkable improvement because they might think, well, I'll look bad if this new, say, quality person, whatever, I'm just throwing it out there, comes in and improves it. Well, what are they going to think about me? They're going to think, well, this plant manager, this site leader, I'm not worthy, or I'm not good enough, or whatever, or I didn't come up with it. So what happens? Well, they might similarly crabs in a bucket, but in this case, it's just a couple crabs. That site leader can just throw people to the curb or toss them out of the way. And that would be the same thing with new employees coming on board, because if they see that some of the leadership are kind of battling against the others to keep status quo, then they see that and they're completely demoralized by it. So what do you think they do? They start looking for another job somewhere else because it's a major toxic issue, right? This is the essentials of toxicity. Now, I don't get too off in the weeds, but you see this in families too. People who are competing for their promotions or their roles or whatever it is to what? Be noticed or whatever it is, and others poo-pooing them, right? You see it in friend groups and families. You see this all over the place. And once you've seen it, once you understand the crabs in the bucket thing, you really can't unsee it. It also kind of falls into that manage from the middle also is a crabs in the bucket mentality, because those in the middle, say middle management or supervisory or lead, kind of in the middle of the group, they can coalesce or they can get the broader team to kind of poo-poo the leadership, and vice versa. They can get the leadership to poo-poo any up and coming team members that are showing promise, because that's a threat to their potential role in the organization. So we really shocked there's 40% turnover? Do you think it's all because, it is organizational culture, but you have to identify it. There's no way to overcome this without knowing about it first. Once you see it, once you understand it, once you get a grip on it, adjacent or outlining this also is uh, narcissism and gaslighting, right? These are also individuals, but tools, the gaslighting, right? Professional gaslighting, poo-pooing somebody's career or their efforts or their whatever, or these sorts of things, right? Behind their back and kind of creating a groundswell of rumor and innuendo. These are the things you see. And we see it in culture all the time. I mean, it's just rife in our culture through media and others, right? Where people are guilty until proven innocent, essentially. And it's really it's a fallacy, right? So this is the thing that you got to be guarded against, is this crabs in a bucket mentality. And it doesn't matter who it is. Now, we can flip this on its head. You could have ownership, right? And I'm talking top tier ownership. They similarly, they might want to, using strategy or tactical approach, they may want to keep folks from rising up. Why is that? Well, if you're improving, I have to pay you more, or I have to promote you, or I have to do, not that you have to, but you're compelled to. Well, what's easier? Well, show an improvement and then kick that site leader out, right? It's just, I mean, you don't really need much. They don't really need much reasoning. They can just do this, right? And that's their prerogative. But understand why. Understand why is that at some point, a site leader is probably going to be a potential runner for a president position in a company or division or whatever it is. And if all those site leaders get together and convince the CEOs or the leader or the ownership, oh my gosh, and they start to poo-poo this other professional, there you go, crabs in a bucket, right? So it isn't all just low, broad-based team. When I say low, I'm talking about the newer, broad-based, where all the blood is pumping in your organization between your workforce and your supervision. I'm not talking about just that. I'm talking about the upper echelons are now in their own uh, arena of crabs in a bucket. All right, so I hope we have a grasp on crabs in a bucket. Now, look at your organization. Do you see this crabs in a bucket mentality? You have to assess for yourself. And if you're wondering why, if your organization is leaking people out and there's turnover and retention is suffering, turnover is high, obviously it's the opposite, is bad or even high, look for this subtlety of the crabs in the bucket, because it's something that is very difficult to pin down, because a lot of things, water cooler talk, it's rumor and innuendo, it's this kind of thing, right? It's not a positive, high vibrational, positive, protect love kind of approach. It is, hey, if we don't want to have to change, we would rather just kind of wither away and die in our own mired okayness that we always have been in, versus improve and progress and improve the lives of the people in the organization. Why? It could be that the crabs in the bucket mentality is that the entire team doesn't want to see the company succeed, because they know if the company succeeds, they'll grow, and there's other things that come from that, and that the idea of an expectation for us to keep performing better on a usual basis, oh, well, we don't want to do that. So what do? We perform to a lesser degree. So you see, it's a malleable thing. It's hard to pin down, but once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And you've probably seen it before in your career. All right, folks, that's enough about the crabs in the bucket for now. Until next time, remember, hit that good domino 3 to 5 times a day to uplift, motivate, inspire, and just encourage folks. And when you do that, not only are we transforming culture and other people's lives, but we're transforming our own lives. And that's a fantastic thing. All right, hit like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, we'll talk to you later.